bring in ESPN senior NFL insider, the football scientist, KC Joyner from the Pro Bowl, which, by the way, I heard last night was a pretty fun event. I had people texting me, "Are you watching this?" I'm like, sorry, I missed it.
It is a fun event down here. I'm actually standing out next to the Champion Stadium where the Braves play their spring training games. It's the only quiet place I can find here because every place else is just a party going on. So a lot of fun down here.
All right, man. Well, the game is getting closer. We are getting closer to Atlanta. New England last year ended the year ranked 11th in rushing yards allowed. Gurley, C.J. Anderson has come on strong here. How do you read into that 11th ranked rush defense from New England? Because I think when we think of the New England Patriots, a lot of time we think of that, this tough defense with not a lot of names on it.
Yeah, the thing is that number 11 ranking, it's a mirage. It's a complete mirage because I've got the metric I've talked about frequently, good blocking rate. It's how often an offense gives its ball carriers quality run blocking. It's really important because good blocking carries are 4 to 5 times more productive than bad blocking carries. So New England ranks 11th in rush yards allowed. They're dead last in the league in good blocking rate allowed. And they're dead last in another category. I have good blocking productivity. And, in fact, if you allow higher than 50% good blocking rate in an individual game, you're having a bad game. They allowed higher than 61% in 5 of their last 10 games in the regular season, and it was higher than 69%. 69% are higher in 4 games. So I think they've got some really serious problems stopping the run right now.
How are they able to kind of slow down the Chiefs? And, the Chiefs, they're a little bit less balanced than they were earlier in the season, of course, when Hunt went out. But how were they able to do that?
It's interesting because, of course, it's Belichick. So when he sees that he's got a problem, he's going to find a very direct solution. And the easiest way to stop the run, if you can't beat people with your front seven just man-on-man, is to bring an extra player in the box, what we call a loaded box. Over the last 4 weeks of the season, the Patriots ranked 4th in loaded boxes on defense. So they have the 4th most loaded boxes on defense. And against the Chiefs, they loaded the box on 30 plays. It was their 4th highest total all year long as far as loaded plays, and they blitzed a ton out of that. So what they essentially said is, we're going to put extra people in here, and then we're going to take these people, we're going to blitz you if you drop back. And they got a ton of pressure. They got pressure. I think it was 46.7% of Mahomes' dropbacks on blitzes. They were getting after him is essentially what they were doing, and they were confusing the Chiefs' offensive line. So that's the sort of thing they're going to do, I think, against the Rams, is say we have to stop the run against Anderson and Gurley. We must stop the run, so we're going to load the box, and we're going to blitz. I just don't know if it's going to work quite as well in this one.
I was going to say, can you use the same recipe? Because high-powered offense, Rams and Chiefs, but are their high-powered offenses similar?
They are, but the Rams pass block a lot better. And during the playoffs, during the 2 games in the playoffs, in fact, of all playoff teams, if you look at how many times they faced the loaded box, the Rams faced the loaded box quite often. But they had the most overall yards against the loaded box, most yards per carry, most rushing yards. The only team in the league in the playoffs with 100 or more yards per game against loaded box opportunities. They were second in net yards per attempt. So basically, when you loaded the box against the Rams, they were beating teams running the ball and throwing the ball. So it's one of those things where the Patriots are going to want to do that, because I don't think they can win the one-on-one matchups on the ground. But I don't think they're going to have as much success, which means they've got to turn this game into a shootout. Right.
So essentially, it sounds like if they try to, go with that tactic against the Rams, it might actually be, a double-edged sword for them.
It might, and I don't know if I'm them. I still want to go with 8 to see if Goff can beat you, because Goff had some problems later in the year, but he's done fantastic against the loaded box in the playoffs. He's got superb numbers. I think he leads the league. In fact, I think he's second in yards per attempt against the loaded box and first in yards per dropback. He's just got some fantastic numbers. And again, look at the defenses that he faced that he put those numbers up against. Cowboys and the Saints, those are 2 really good defenses. We're not talking about some second-rate defense. So the Patriots come in there and they try the same tactics. Like I said, I don't think it'll work very well. So I think the Patriots are just going to have to get into a situation where maybe they slow the game down on their side of the ball, which they did try to do that last week as well, and they do that in some other things. But they're going to have to. I think they're going to have to hope for a Goff turnover or 2 if they're going to win this game.
Let me ask you about the New England rushing attack. And you see each week it seems to be a different guy. White, Sony Michel. If you're New England against the Rams this week, this Super Bowl, which of these guys, Rex Burkhead, which of the guys is the guy that fits best against that defense?
I would think that it would be Sony Michel be the one they're going to lean on. I think they're going to give it, they're going to give carries and touches to all three of those. But I think Michel's the one because the Patriots are playing exceptionally well running the ball as well. Not only having a high good blocker rate, they were 12th in the league over the course of the season, but they had really good numbers in the second half of the season. They're not only doing well in their good blocking rate, but you look at the variety of things they're doing, the types of running plays they're doing, a lot of creativity, which most teams don't do anymore. Most teams just aren't. They save all the creativity to the passing game. The Patriots can get creative as far as run blocking. And the Rams ranked 19th in good blocking rate allowed. So I think they're going to want Michel to run the ball a lot. But I don't think they keep White out of the situation. I think they're going to get him handoffs and passing situations, so they're trying to do draw plays and such. But I also think they're going to do a lot of things to try to get him matched up against the Rams linebackers, because I think if he gets up against the Rams linebackers, big plays are waiting to happen.
What do you think about the Patriots offense? I mean, last week Roma was talking about it. They don't have any outside guys. They got to put Gronk out there. How do you kind of, try to have big plays if you're New England with what they have?
First off, thankfully you can throw at Marcus Peters. So that will certainly help, because he's had terrible coverage metrics this season. He's blown coverages too. And I think they're going to try and say we're going to get him to they're going to throw some confusing things in and see if they can get him out of position, because that's one way you can hit big plays. If you can't beat him by just having better players, you can beat him if you outsmart them. So they'll do some of that. And now that Brady also, the Chargers, when they came up with their 7 defensive backs and they tried to do a lot of creative things, Brady beat them for, I think it was 14 yards per attempt on vertical passes. It was just an insanely high number. So I think that they can play call ways of getting open, even if the Rams do certain things. But again, I think the Patriots have to. This is not going to be a game where they can try and slow things down, because I don't think that's going to work. I think this game's going to have close to 70 points.
What about this is interesting too. To me anyway, you've got Gronk, and last week they were kind of using him, on the outside later in the games, and they kind of pointed out that he's been used as a blocking back or in the blocking role a lot this year, that he hasn't been the same. Do you think that maybe he is an X factor in this game, that we see kind of the old Gronk for 1 week here in the Super Bowl?
I think we could see that. Again, I don't know that they're going to go vertical quite as much, because the Rams have been solid against tight ends this year. I don't know that they're necessarily going to do that. But, again, they're trying to figure who we can go to for vertical plays. Can they hit things down the middle of the field? Yeah, especially if the Rams are going to play too deep. They're going to leave what coaches call middle of the field open. If they'll do that, then you can run seam routes and do things to beat the defense down the middle of the field. But if nothing else, I think they'll at least say, okay, we need to turn this into a high-scoring game. We need to make them think about our receivers. We're going to send Gronk deep because he's been playing a little better in the passing game of late. We need to at least make you think about it. But I think he'll probably be more involved in the passing game. But just, again, maybe that's just more a side effect of the fact that I think the Patriots are going to have to try and score 40 points to win this game.
Wade Phillips has faced Tom Brady many times, and the Rams defense kind of hitting their stride here. How do you kind of see them matching up against this Patriots offense, which, again, Gronk isn't the same guy. The running back situation, we don't really know who it's going to be. I don't know where you rank this Patriots offense on the list of some of their other ones, but it just seems like it's not one of the more feared offenses that they've had.
It's not, and you've got Dante Scarnecchia, their offensive line coach, to thank for them being as productive as they are, despite the fact they don't have the downfield talent. What he's doing with the offensive line is great. Problem for him is you can do all the game planning that you want. In fact, that's what they did last week against the Chiefs. They were able to do certain types of game planning. I think the Chiefs played a very simplistic coverage, but they also did simplistic things with their pass rush. So they weren't, doing a lot of things that were going to test the Patriots' offensive line. The Patriots will try and do. I don't think the Rams are going to throw a lot of creative things at the Patriots either, because they haven't been blitzing very much. Because Wade Phillips, he always wants to get pass rush pressure. If he can't get above 4, he'll rush 5. He can't go 5 or rush 6. But when he's got who he has up front, he's got Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh and the rest of those guys on that line, he doesn't have to blitz a lot. He can just go ahead and rush. So I think that even if Scarnecchia has a great game plan, I still think the Rams are going to be able to get pass rush pressure, because nobody on that Rams or the Patriots offensive line is capable of beating either Donald or Suh in a one-on-one environment.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Peters in that secondary. It seems that, okay, the Patriots don't have a lot of guys that can beat you over the top, but, you wonder if Brady's precision is the way that you go in this one, and just have him kind of, keeping long drives underneath and just frustrating the Rams, because the Rams don't have a great outside pass rush.
They don't have a great outside pass rush. They have up the gut pass rush. They don't have a great outside pass rush. They get enough of a pass rush to where Wade Phillips is willing to say, I'm not going to send extras, which, again, is kind of different for him because usually he used to do that if he was the king of rushing 5 players or blitzing because he knew that's what he needed to do to get a pass rush. But the thing is, if I'm on the Patriots, I'm looking at, I don't trust the Rams linebackers in coverage. I definitely want to go after that, exploit that. I do want to see what I can do with Peters. And frankly, Chris Hogan versus Peters, Hogan's been a good vertical threat at times in the past. I'd love that matchup. And if they can get Edelman to go up against Peters, I do any of a number of things there because Peters, he'll make a big play now and again. In fact, when he plays up to his talent level, he's very good. But I think he gets his head out of the game, and sometimes he forgets what he's supposed to do, or he tries to freelance. If you try and freelance against Tom Brady, he's hitting big plays over the top.
KC Joyner is with us, taking a brief look at the Super Bowl here, kind of a first look at Super Bowl 53. What about Jared Goff? When you look at him, the development of him, is he a top 10 guy? Is he not there yet? What do you see when you see Jared Goff?
These last 2 games have changed my mind a lot on him. He was doing well earlier in the year, but it was just a counterpuncher. They're running the ball really well, and he's got good receivers. In fact, when they had Cooper Kupp in there too, that's top 3 between Kupp and Woods and Cooks. That's probably the top. If you're talking 3 wide receivers, that's the best 3 wide receiver set in the league. So then when Kupp goes down, he's not quite as good, and had some struggles there late in the year. The Eagles just played shell coverages and were able to shut him down. But what he did in the playoffs there, just because we look at his numbers, again, when they're facing a loaded box and they're blitzing, they're facing a lot of pressure situations. Last year in the playoffs, against Atlanta, he didn't do very well in any situation. These playoffs against 2 tough defenses, and especially on the road late in that game against the Saints, when the Saints crowd was so loud, whether or not they were brought whistles in or whether it was just whistle guy making the noise, either way, they had enough. He was making enough big plays. You look at his metrics and vertical passes and a bunch of other metrics. You look at those. His numbers are good enough to where I'm saying, okay, I'm thinking this guy is now graduating towards being a top 10 quarterback.
Brandon Cooks, was a guy who was with the Patriots, didn't really stick there. They end up trading him over there. What do you think about the weapons in this game for the Rams? Is this the game? You mentioned the running defense, but is this a game where there are chances for Goff to make plays and go over the top? Do they have the weapons and the playmakers to take some big shots down the field?
Brandon Cooks represented 38% of New England's what I call stretch vertical production in 2017. That's passes throwing 20 more yards downfield. So nearly 40% of their production was to Brandon Cooks. I think that the Rams are going to want to show them what a mistake they made in letting Cooks go, because the Patriots, again, they're not going to have a choice because the Rams led the league in good blocking rate on offense. They have the best run blocking line in the league. So they're going to the Patriots are going to have to come up and bring those extra guys in the box. And when they do that, you got to think Cooks. You got to test them against these cornerbacks. And I think that the Rams are going to do that early and often, or at least often enough. Again, I think the Patriots are going to, at the end of this game, I think they are going to regret having let Cooks go, because had they kept him, I think it would be a factor that would have turned the game in the other direction.
What does Sean McVay, I mean, this guy's getting coaches hired all over the place. What does he do as a head coach that impresses you?
Coaches will tell you frequently that we often are doing the same thing with our offense. It's just we're finding ways to disguise what we're trying to do. And he's able to get to use that sort of offense and what all the different ways that he can disguise things. He's able to do all the things that he can do. But what I like about him is that, hey, I've got Todd Gurley, I'm going to run one type of offense. I've got C.J. Anderson, I'm going to still be able to run that type of offense. He does a great job, him and his staff, of coaching their offensive line, and he's able to get his receivers involved everywhere. A lot of teams would have looked at Robert Woods and said, Robert Woods, you're a possession receiver, and that's what you are. He uses Robert Woods on possession routes, but Robert Woods has led the team in vertical receptions or vertical yards this year for a good portion of the season. So he's using Woods as an all-over receiver instead of just putting him into one particular area. So between what he does with the creativity and the play calling and his willingness to say, I can use my personnel in a variety of different ways, I think it allows him to get the most out of his talent.
Where, in your mind, are the Rams, what's their most deficient area?
Deficient area?
Yeah, where are they the weakest?
Where are they weakest? I would have to say, I mentioned the run defense, because I'm so sold on the fact that I think this game's going to be determined in the ground game. Their run defense has not been they're ranked 19th in good blocking rate allowed. They've been inconsistent in that area. I think when you've got Donald and Sue, you can do things like trap them. I expect to see the Patriots do all kinds of traps and all kinds of influence type of running plays to where they're going to make these guys take themselves out of plays. It's tough because you got two guys who can impact the play. If it's one, it's really easy to say, okay, we'll just keep trapping them, do these different things. You can't trap two on every play. In fact, you can't trap two players in one play very effectively. But you can keep doing those things to keep those guys off balance. So I think that that's going to be the thing is that the Rams defense tries so hard to make big plays both between them and what they do on run defense that they lose some of their discipline. And if they do that against the Patriots, again, you're talking a high-scoring game.
Yeah, KC Joyner, ESPN senior NFL insider here. He's at the Pro Bowl right now. So who will the Patriots try to take out of this game? If you're the the Bill Belichick putting together your game plan, who do the Patriots try to kind of negate, take away? Who's the guy that you need to focus on the most on the Rams?
I think they're going to do two things. I think they're going to try – they'll mimic the game plan they had last week. I think they'll try and make some adjustments, maybe not blitz as much because blitz can lead them in some bad situations. But I think what they'll do is they'll load the box up because you've got to stop the ground game. You've got to stop Gurley if he's playing a lot of plays. And frankly, the Rams only need him to get 10 to 15 touches. Anderson could handle the rest. If they had Gurley do that, they'd be just fine. So I think they need to stop those two. But where I think they really need to step up is in pass defense. I really think they need to say, Gilmore, you're going to be a shadow on Cooks. You need to keep him from hitting the big plays. If they do that, they'll be okay if they can stop that kind of vertical game because they have to take him out in one-on-one situations because they're just not going to have the defenders to say we could double these guys all game.
So much intrigue in this game. I like the game. I don't know if I definitely don't have a team that I'm pulling for, but I am intrigued. You know, the young, McVay against Belichick and Goff against Brady. You got the fact that these two teams played in 2002 that kind of started this whole Patriots run. And really, if the Rams win this game, Casey, who knows where they could go from here? They got a young head coach and a young quarterback. We could be seeing something eerily similar if they win this game and start something.
I think that you're very right. They could absolutely be starting something, and I also think that one of the big storylines here, mentioning McVay, is Bill Belichick got outcoached in last year's Super Bowl. They, the Eagles beat them physically, but they also outcoached them, not just really special, but in a number of ways. McVay's one of the few coaches in the league who might be able to do that same thing, and if you had Bill Belichick getting outcoached in 2 straight Super Bowls, you'd start to wonder, okay, maybe the mystique's going to wear off a bit.
All right, it's next Sunday. We have plenty more coming up on this game. Of course, live from Radio Row next week. KC Joyner will get his thoughts as well as, by the way, interesting news in the NFL. Antonio Brown wanting out of Pittsburgh, so that's something to keep an eye on here. I will ask you this. You're a football guy through and through. The Super Bowl is next Sunday. The following week, we've got the Alliance of American Football. Are you intrigued?
Intrigued from the idea of there could be prospects there, there are people to watch. If you remember the old World League of American Football, there's some good players that came out of there. So intrigued from a personnel and a scouting eye perspective, but I'm not expecting to see Sean McVay and Bill Belichick caliber coach football in that league.
Well, there's some interesting coaches. You see Mike Martz is a coach, Spurrier is a coach. Who else was there? Some Newheisel's a coach. There was somebody else that there was semi-big. They have some interesting coaches in there. So just to remember, football is not over. February the 9th is when that starts. All right, Casey, enjoy the Pro Bowl, as it sounds like it's been a good event down there so far.
It's been great, and I got my family down here. I'm going to be going down here tomorrow, too, and seeing a number of different things. And it's going to be cold, though. I hate to say it. We're Floridians, and you get in the 50 degrees. We put on our winter jackets. Lots of people winter jackets down here.
All right, KC Joyner here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it.